This is Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing. You're watching Sporting Icons. You don't need to be anywhere else.
Okay, so Eddie Hearn, just when you think that he may just be on the slide, pulls out an ace from his sleeve. He has apparently offered Canelo Alvarez an $85 million two-fight deal to be exclusive with DAZN and Matchroom. $85 million for two fights. Those two fights, Dmitry Bivol and Triple G, Gennady, Golovkin. Now, we'll talk about those two fights and some other situations surrounding Canelo Alvarez as well. But why is it an ace out the sleeve for Eddie Hearn? Well, because the numbers that Chris Eubank Jr. produced against Liam Williams this past weekend, again, I was there, fantastic event. This goes to show that Chris Eubank Jr. is a superstar. The numbers that he produced were phenomenal. He's the talking point. He's the trending boxer right now. And he is number one, or maybe even mandatory, for currently Ryoto Murata. Ryoto Murata will be taking on Triple G next. So therefore, all going well, and I'm presuming Triple G is going to win that fight. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. Chris Eubank Jr. is set to fight Triple G, Gennady, Golovkin. That's a fight that a lot of us have been waiting for a long, long time. It should have happened a few years ago, missing pens and all that kind of stuff. But with Eddie Hearn offering Triple G as the second fight of this $85 million two-fight deal to Canelo Alvarez, would remove Triple G from that equation. So who's left for Chris Eubank Jr.? Who's left? There isn't really anybody, is there? He ain't going to get a Charlo fight. Again, he's over on the PBC. And after Chris Eubank Jr. left the PBC, what kind of relationship do you think they have? They ain't going to make that fight, or at least very unlikely. Could they make the Andre fight? Maybe. So they're then going to have to be looking at the Billy Joe Saunders fight. Again, Billy Joe Saunders still has a fight left with DAZN and Matchroom. So this is why Eddie Hearn has pulled a bit of an ace out of his sleeve, because now he's potentially blocked huge numbers for Sky Sports. Anyway, so moving on to this two-fight deal. Dmitry Bivol, of course, the WBA light heavyweight world champion. Now, firstly, let's just give Canelo Alvarez, whether you like him or don't like him, some people have a bit of an issue with the whole PED situation a few years ago. And again, I understand why. Of course, I don't like PEDs. I've never liked them, okay? For me, if you're taking something and you're proven to have taken something, then yes, you should be handed out a bit more than a 6-month ban, which happened to coincide with the time that a fighter would normally take off anyway. Okay, but PEDs don't enhance your performance to the point of it doesn't give you a new skill set. It doesn't make you move your feet in a certain way, throw punches at certain angles. Would it help your chin? Maybe in some ways. But again, Canelo Alvarez, yes, there was a bit of an issue. Put it down to Mexican beef, whatever. But he's been testing clean every single fight since. Is he getting a helping hand from the WBC? I don't know. Again, that's all down to speculation. But let's give this man respect for the fact that he is taking on killer after killer after killer. Undefeated man after undefeated man after undefeated man. World champion after world champion after world champion. This man is about legacy. And yeah, he's getting paid very, very well for his troubles. Of course he is. But his resume is outstanding. Name me one other fighter out there who has a better resume than Canelo Alvarez. You can't. In this particular era, he is the number one. I understand people say Terence Crawford is a phenomenal fighter. And I don't have too much of an issue with people saying Crawford is pound for pound number one. I really don't. But based on resume, Canelo Alvarez, there's no one even close to him. He's taken on risk after risk after risk. And he's looking good each and every time he does it. He's a multiple weight world champion. He's the very first undisputed world champion at super middleweight. And if anybody has the right and has deserved the opportunity to fight whoever it is that he wants to fight, whether it be the road sweeper from down the road or whether it be a legitimate world champion, it's Canelo Alvarez. Because he has been taking on killer after killer, world champion after world champion, undefeated fighter after undefeated fighter, consistently. He has been. I said, I'm not saying that you have to like him. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you even have to rate him. You should rate him. But even if you don't, you have to give him respect for what it is that he's done. And it's not just that as well. Look at the other fighters that he's been in there with. Austin Trout, Daniel Jacobs, Floyd Mayweather. The list goes on and on and on. Now, ultimately against Bivol, it's a risk. Maybe he's taken a step too far. Because he didn't look great when he took on an aging and slowed down Sergey Kovalev. He didn't look great. He didn't. But he knocked him out in the end. He did. I know some people believe that Kovalev took a dive. He didn't. He genuinely didn't. Watch the replay. He didn't. But Dmitry Bivol is a killer. He is. And I've been saying it for quite some time that I believe that he is the number one in the light heavyweight division. I know some people say Beterbiev, and I understand Beterbiev is a phenomenal fighter as well. So I can't argue with people who say Beterbiev is the best. Ideally, I'd like to have seen Bivol versus Beterbiev. I would. 2 Russians, that's a huge fight. I don't know why that fight hasn't happened yet. I really don't. Joe Smith Jr., of course, he's flying around there as well. I think he's probably the weaker one of the lot. I know that sounds a little disrespectful. I'm not saying he's weak and he's no good. I'm not saying that. I'm saying out of Bivol and Beterbiev. But him taking on Bivol shows again that he's willing to step up. He's willing to take on undefeated fighter, world champion and killer. Bivol could legitimately beat Canelo Alvarez. Now, I know Bivol didn't look great last time out against Craig Spider Richards. I understand that. He didn't look great. Is that down to inactivity? Yeah, maybe. But at the same time, let's give Craig Richards a lot of credit. He's better than what people give him credit for. He is. I've always said that. And when I saw that Craig Richards had agreed to fight Bivol, I ain't going to lie, my first reaction was, what on earth are you doing, Eddie Hearn? You're just throwing poor Craig Richards to the lion. But he looked real good in that fight. He did at times. But either way, as a legitimate, undefeated killer of a world champion in Dmitry Bivol. So again, you have to give massive, massive respect to Canelo Alvarez. Now, as far as moving into the Triple G fight, now Triple G, he's got that fight with Ryoto Murata coming up. It's a unification fight for Triple G's IBF and Murata's WBA. I would heavily favour Triple G in that fight. I would. Triple G hasn't looked great over his last couple of fights. His age starting to creep up on him? Maybe. Maybe he's been in too many wars, arguably. Yes, he's never really looked unstable at any point when he's getting landed. But ultimately, they will take their effect long term. But I would certainly favour Triple G against Ryoto Murata. But him getting through Ryoto Murata, as an example, and Canelo, if he was to get through Dmitry Bivol, that third fight. Now, again, you would have to heavily favour Canelo Alvarez in that third fight. But if anybody deserves a Canelo Alvarez fight, it would be Triple G. Again, look at his resume. It's phenomenal. Look at the fact that he's fought Canelo twice already. Some people, myself included, believe that he won at least one of those. Some people believe he won both of them and got jobbed. So if anybody deserves a Canelo Alvarez fight, it would be Triple G. Yes, it's a few years later than maybe what it should have happened. I agree. Is the fight as big now as it ever was? No, probably not. Probably not. But Triple G does deserve that third fight. Unfortunately for him, I think it's come at a time where Canelo Alvarez seems to have stepped up a few levels since then, and Triple G has dropped down a couple levels since then. And I'm presuming it's going to be at super middleweight. I firmly believe that Canelo Alvarez's middleweight days are well and truly over. They are. Which, of course, moves us nicely into where a lot of people will say that maybe he's ducking Jamal Charlo, he's ducking David Benavidez, he's ducking Demetrius Andrade. And, well, again, Charlo and Andrade are middleweights. David Benavidez, he's not bringing any kind of world title to the frame, is he? Yes, there's a Mexican connection, of course, that would make it a big fight, but Canelo Alvarez can fight my bin man and still do a pay-per-view level fight. He could. Speaking of which, I have heard that potentially the 2 fights for Canelo Alvarez will be breaking into the DAZN pay-per-view. Hopefully, they don't be charging $85 for it. Hopefully not, and hopefully here in the UK, it won't be pay-per-view. But, I mean, they probably will be. But either way, he's not going to be ducking Jamal Charlo. And again, let's be real. Had he have fought Jamal Charlo, it probably wouldn't have been at middleweight. It'd probably been at super middleweight. He beats the absolute brakes off Jamal Charlo, then what happens? Oh, well, it's because Charlo is a middleweight. He's not a super middleweight. He brought him up. He weight bullied him. Again, do people give Canelo Alvarez credit for defeating Amir Khan? No, they don't. And they wouldn't with Charlo either. It's a lose-lose situation. It is. If he fought David Benavidez, oh, well, David Benavidez, he weren't that good to start with, yada, yada, yada. Again, this is what people will say. If he fought Andrade, again, probably at super middleweight, oh, well, it's because he weight bullied him. But these very same people who say that Canelo Alvarez is ducking Charlo, he's ducking Andrade, and he's ducking David Benavidez, well, why are those three not fighting each other? Can anybody tell me why they're not fighting each other? If they at least fought each other, at least a winner could then legitimately say, I want Canelo Alvarez, because they've earned it. At the minute, none of them have earned it. Arguably, Benavidez has probably done a bit more than the other two. Granted, the other two are two-weight world champions, but who's on their resume? Who'd they beat? Juan Montiel for Charlo? Come on. Who's Andre beat? Liam Williams? What's wrong with them two fighting each other? What's wrong with that? It's a unification and it's at middleweight. What's wrong with that? Why can't they get the fight done? Why? Cross promotions. That's the reason, yeah? That's just ridiculous. Why can't Jamal Charlo, if he's willing to move to super middleweight, take on David Benavidez? David Benavidez is an in-house PBC fighter. Them two have been going at each other for a little while on social media. Okay, so where's the fight? At least then, if them two fought, the winner could legitimately say, well, at least I've done something. Canelo, let's get it on. But these people just sat around on their hands waiting for a Canelo Alvarez payday, much like a lot of heavyweights do, waiting for an Anthony Joshua payday. They want to talk about Joshua, but don't want to fight him. And it's exactly the same situation with Canelo Alvarez. So anyway, if, of course, it does transpire to be true that that is the deal, a two-fight deal with Matchroom and DAZN, $85 million. Yeah, again, you have to give huge props to Eddie Hearn for pretty much sabotaging a potential Chris Eubank Jr. versus Triple G fight. And again, you have to say congratulations to him as well, the fact that he's kept him off PBC for the best part of a year now due to those two fights. So anyway, we'll have to wait and see what happens. At the minute, I suppose it's just pure speculation until it actually happens. Drop your thoughts below, click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you on the next video.